Finally, the inheritance can be divided. My son said that at my funeral, with a smile, while I sat 20 feet away, alive in disguise, listening to every word. You want to know how I got there? How a 65-year-old woman ended up faking her own death, staging a funeral, and watching her family celebrate her money instead of mourning her? I'll tell you. But I'm warning you, this story will make you question everything you think you know about family. Let me ask you something first. If you faked your own funeral, what do you think your family would say about you? Really say, when they think you can't hear them? Keep that question in your mind. Because what I heard destroyed me. And then, it freed me. My name is Eleanor Grace Mitchell. I'm 65 years old, and for most of my life I thought I was a good mother. I raised 2 sons alone after my husband left when they were young. I worked 3 jobs, cleaning houses during the day, waitressing at night, doing laundry on weekends, just to make sure Marcus and Daniel had everything they needed. Good clothes, good food, good schools, piano lessons for Marcus because he showed interest, baseball equipment for Daniel because he loved sports. I sacrificed everything. My sleep, my dreams, my social life, my own happiness. I wore the same 5 dresses for 3 years because every penny went to my boys. I ate leftover food from the restaurant where I worked so I could buy them fresh groceries. I slept 4 hours a night for 15 years, because that's what mothers do, right? Or is that what fools do? Tell me in the comments, when does sacrifice become stupidity? When does love become blind devotion that destroys you? For 40 years, I believed love was enough. I believed that if you give your children everything, they'll love you back. I believed that sacrifice breeds gratitude. I was wrong about all of it. 2 years ago, something changed. My sons, both successful men now, started treating me differently. Not badly exactly, just differently. Like I was an inconvenience. Like I was a problem they had to manage until nature took its course. The phone calls stopped being about me and started being about them. Mom, I got a promotion. Mom, we bought a new house. Mom, the kids made honor roll. Always about their achievements, never asking about my life. And when I'd try to share something about my day, I could hear it in their voices that they were just waiting for me to finish so they could hang up. The visits dried up. First, it was every Sunday. Then every other Sunday. Then once a month. Then only holidays. And even on holidays, they'd show up late and leave early. 2 hours maximum. Sometimes less. Marcus is 42 now. He works in real estate, makes good money, lives in a mansion in the suburbs with his wife Bethany and their 2 daughters, Claire and Sophie. Bethany never liked me from day one. I could see it in her eyes the first time Marcus brought her home 20 years ago. I wasn't sophisticated enough for her. My house was too small. My manners were too simple. I was an embarrassment to the image she wanted to project, but I smiled. I welcomed her. I loved her because my son loved her. I threw them an engagement party I couldn't afford. I helped plan their wedding even though Bethany made it clear she didn't want my input. I babysat Claire and Sophie every weekend for the first 5 years of their lives so Marcus and Bethany could have date nights. And slowly, over those 20 years, I watched Bethany turn my son against me. Little comments here and there. Your mother is so old-fashioned. Does she really have to visit every week? Can't she just call before coming over? Until Marcus started seeing me through her eyes. An inconvenience. A relic from a past he'd rather forget. Daniel is 38. He's a corporate lawyer, sharp and ambitious, always in expensive suits. He married Jennifer, a dental hygienist who seemed sweet at first. Quiet. Respectful. But the moment they had children, Jake and Michael, now 10 and 8, everything changed. Jennifer started making excuses. Eleanor, the boys have so much homework. Eleanor, we can't visit this weekend, we have soccer practice. Eleanor, can you not come over Sunday? We're having Jennifer's family for dinner? Eleanor, not mom, not even mother. Just Eleanor, like I was a distant acquaintance. An outsider in my own son's life. But I kept trying. I kept calling. I kept inviting them over. I kept buying expensive gifts I couldn't afford for birthdays and Christmas. I kept showing up even when I wasn't wanted because I thought if I just tried hard enough, if I just loved them enough, they'd remember how much I'd sacrificed for them. The signs were everywhere. I just didn't want to see them. Or maybe I saw them but couldn't admit what they meant because admitting it would break me. Last Christmas was the breaking point. Well, not the breaking point. That came later. But it was when I started to wake up. I spent 3 days preparing. I baked 7 different kinds of cookies from scratch using recipes my mother had taught me. I decorated every room in my house. I bought a real tree and spent hours stringing lights and hanging ornaments, including the handmade ones my boys had made when they were little. For Claire, my 17-year-old granddaughter, I bought a designer handbag she'd mentioned once in passing 6 months earlier. $400. That was half my monthly retirement check. But I wanted her to have it. I wanted her to know her grandmother listened, remembered, cared. For Sophie, 15, I bought professional-grade art supplies from that expensive store downtown. $300. She'd mentioned wanting to take art more seriously, and I thought, this is perfect. This will show her I pay attention. This will show her I support her dreams. For Jake and Michael, I bought the video games they'd been talking about. $70 each. For Marcus and Daniel, I knitted sweaters. I'd started in September, working on them every evening after dinner, choosing their favorite colors, navy blue for Marcus, forest green for Daniel. Every stitch made with love. Every row a prayer that they'd wear them and think of me. I wrapped everything beautifully. I made a feast: turkey, ham, mashed potatoes, stuffing, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, 3 kinds of pie. I set the table with my mother's china, the set I'd inherited when she died, the set I'd been saving for special occasions. They were supposed to arrive at noon. They called at 11:30. Mom, traffic is crazy. We'll be a bit late. They showed up at 2:15, 2 hours and 15 minutes late. No apology, just sorry, you know how it is. They stayed for 47 minutes. I know because I looked at the clock when they arrived and again when they left. 47 minutes out of my entire Christmas, the kids barely looked at their gifts. Claire opened the handbag, said, "Oh, thanks, Gran," and immediately pulled out her phone. Sophie opened the art supplies, nodded, and went back to texting. Jake and Michael ripped open their video games, said cool, and asked if they could go sit in the car because they were bored. Marcus and Daniel opened their sweaters. Marcus held his up, looked at Bethany, and I saw him roll his eyes. Bethany laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, Eleanor, that's so sweet. But Marcus doesn't really wear handmade things." Doesn't really wear handmade things. I'd spent 3 months making that sweater. My hands ached from the arthritis. My eyes strained from the detailed work. And she laughed at it. They ate quickly. Marcus checked his phone constantly. Daniel yawned twice. Bethany kept looking at her watch. And then, at 3:02, Bethany stood up. "Well, this has been lovely, but we really need to get going. We have another dinner to get to." Another dinner. Jen's family is expecting us. Another family. A better family. A more important family. Marcus and Daniel hugged me quickly, awkwardly. The kind of hug you give a stranger. The grandchildren waved from the doorway. And then they were gone. I stood at my window, watching their expensive cars pull away, Christmas music playing softly from my radio, fake snow still falling from my porch decorations, and I cried. Not pretty tears, ugly, shaking sobs that came from somewhere deep in my chest, from a place I didn't know existed. That's when I knew, really knew. They didn't love me. They tolerated me. They came to Christmas because it was expected, because it looked good, because they could tell people, of course we saw Mom at Christmas. But they didn't want to be there. They didn't want to see me. They wanted their inheritance and for me to die quietly without causing problems. But I told myself I was being dramatic. I told myself I was too sensitive, that I was reading too much into things. Maybe this is just what happens when children grow up. Maybe I needed to lower my expectations. Maybe I was asking too much, so I kept trying. I called every week. Sometimes they answered. Sometimes they didn't. When they did answer, the conversations were short. 3 minutes. 5 minutes maximum. Always ending with, "Sorry, Mom, I have to go. I'll call you later." They never called later. I invited them for Sunday dinners. They rarely came. Work is crazy right now. The kids have activities. We're just so busy. I offered to babysit. They never needed me. The kids are old enough now. We have a regular sitter we use. It's easier if they stay home. I asked to come visit them. They discouraged it. The house is a mess. We have plans that day. Maybe next month. Month after month, I felt myself disappearing from their lives. Like I was fading away, becoming invisible, ceasing to exist except as an obligation they had to manage. Then, 6 months ago, came the incident that changed everything. The fall that made me realize I wasn't being dramatic or too sensitive. The fall that showed me exactly where I stood in my son's lives. It was a Tuesday morning, about 8 o'clock. I was in my kitchen making coffee. I'd spilled some water on the floor earlier and forgotten to wipe it up. I stepped right on it, my foot slid out from under me, and I went down hard. My head hit the edge of the counter on the way down. Head wounds bleed a lot. I knew that intellectually, but when it's your own blood pouring down your face, soaking your nightgown, pooling on your kitchen floor, intellectual knowledge doesn't help. I was terrified. The pain was intense. I couldn't think clearly. My vision was blurry. I grabbed my phone and called Marcus. It rang 5 times before going to voicemail. "Marcus, honey, I fell. I hit my head and I'm bleeding. A lot. Can you come? Please?" I tried to sound calm, but I could hear the panic in my own voice. He called back 3 hours later. 3 hours. I'd already driven myself to the emergency room, gotten 7 stitches, and driven myself home by then. "Oh, Mom, sorry. I was in a meeting and had my phone on silent." "Are you okay? Do you need me to come over?" But I could hear it in his voice. He didn't want to come. He was hoping I'd say no. And I could hear Bethany in the background. "Tell her to call 911 if it's serious. That's what ambulances are for. That's what ambulances are for. Not for sons to rush to their mother's side when she's bleeding and scared. Ambulances, for strangers." I said I was fine. I said I'd already gotten stitches. I said I didn't need anything. Because what was the alternative? Beg my own son to care about me? Then I called Daniel. Jennifer answered. "Eleanor, Daniel's at the golf course. It's his only day off this month. Is it an emergency?" Her tone made it clear that it better not be an emergency. It better not be me interrupting Daniel's precious golf day. "I fell and hit my head," I said quietly. "I've got stitches, but I'm okay now." I just wanted to let him know. "Oh, well, I'll tell him when he gets home. Hope you feel better." And she hung up. "No, are you sure you're okay?" "No, do you need anything?" "No, let me call him and have him come see you. Just, I'll tell him when he gets home." Daniel called me 2 days later. Not that evening. Not the next day. 2 days later. "Hey, Mom, Jen said you fell? Are you okay?" Casual, like he was asking about the weather. "I'm fine," I said, because what else could I say? "Good. Listen, I'm swamped at work, but I'll try to visit soon." He didn't visit. He sent flowers 3 weeks later with a card that said, "Hope you're recovering. Love, Daniel and family." Generic. Impersonal. Like something you send to a colleague you barely know. That's when something inside me broke. Or maybe it didn't break. Maybe it woke up. Maybe for the first time in 40 years I saw clearly, my sons didn't love me. They were waiting for me to die. And they were annoyed that it was taking so long. I was an inconvenience, a burden, an obligation, a woman who'd given them everything and had become nothing in return. I sat in my empty house with 7 stitches in my head and no one who cared enough to check on me, and I made a decision. I needed to know the truth. Not the truth they told me. Not the polite lies and weak excuses. The real truth. What they really thought of me. What they really said when I wasn't around. There was only one way to find that out. I had to die. Well, not actually die, but they had to think I was dead. They had to believe they were free of me, free to say whatever they wanted without worrying I'd hear it. They had to reveal themselves completely, with no filter, no pretense, no performance. So I started planning my own funeral. Now, before you judge me, let me ask you something. Have you ever felt invisible to the people who are supposed to love you most? Have you ever wondered what they really say about you when you're not around? Have you ever sacrificed everything for someone only to realize they see your sacrifice as worthless? Drop a comment. I want to know if I'm the only one who's felt this way, because I felt so alone, so foolish, so angry at myself for being blind for so long. Planning your own fake death is surprisingly easy when you have the right people helping you. The first person I recruited was Dr. Harrison. He's been my physician for 15 years, a kind man in his mid-60s with gentle eyes and a patient manner. During my next checkup, I told him everything. About the neglect, about the fall, about what I needed to know, about my plan. I expected him to think I was crazy. I expected him to refuse, maybe even to suggest I see a therapist. Instead, he was quiet for a long moment, his hands folded on his desk, his eyes thoughtful. Then he leaned forward and said, "Eleanor, I've watched you come here for 15 years. Every single visit, you talk about your sons. You light up when you mention them. You're so proud of their achievements. You beam when you talk about your grandchildren," he paused. "But in the last 2 years, something changed. You don't light up anymore. You look sad, defeated, exhausted. Not physically exhausted, emotionally exhausted. I've seen it before in elderly patients whose families have abandoned them emotionally while still pretending to care. It's heartbreaking." He looked me straight in the eye. "You deserve to know the truth. And if this is what you need, I'll help you." The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer, terminal, aggressive, 6 months to live, probably less. It was perfect for several reasons. First, my mother had died of pancreatic cancer, so there was family history, completely believable. Second, pancreatic cancer is fast and brutal. No one would question why I declined so quickly. Third, it's one of those cancers where people usually die before extensive treatment can be attempted, so there wouldn't be a long series of medical visits that would be hard to fake. Dr. Harrison would tell my sons I'd come in for a routine checkup, and the blood work had revealed alarming markers. Further tests showed advanced pancreatic cancer that had already metastasized, inoperable, untreatable, just pain management and waiting. He made the calls on a Thursday afternoon. I sat in his office listening on speakerphone, my hands shaking despite my resolve. First, he called Marcus. The phone rang 4 times before Marcus answered. "Hello?" Impatient. "Busy." "Marcus, this is Dr. Harrison, your mother's physician. I need to speak with you about Eleanor's test results." Dr. Harrison's voice was perfectly serious, perfectly professional. A pause. The sound of a door closing. Background noise fading. "What's wrong?" Not, "Is she okay?" Not, "What happened?" Just, "What's wrong?" Like Dr. Harrison had called to report a problem with his car, not his mother's health. "I'm very sorry to tell you this, but your mother has advanced pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. It's already metastasized to her liver. We're looking at 6 months at most, probably less." Silence. Long silence. Then, "Are you sure? Have you done all the tests? Could it be a mistake?" Not, "Oh my God." Not, "I need to see her right now." Not, "Is she in pain?" Not, "What can we do?" Just verification questions. Making sure the diagnosis was real. Making sure this was really happening. "I'm certain," Dr. Harrison said. "I've run every test. I've consulted with oncology specialists." "I'm so sorry, Marcus, but there's no doubt." Another pause. "Does she know?" "I'm telling her today. I wanted to call you first so you and your brother could be prepared to support her through this." "Right. Okay, thank you for calling. I'll talk to Daniel and we'll figure out what to do." Figure out what to do. Not support our dying mother, not be there for her in her final months, but figure out what to do. Like I was a problem that needed solving. A situation that needed managing. "I'll have my secretary send you the full medical report," Dr. Harrison said. "Eleanor will need a lot of support in the coming months." Yeah, of course. Thanks again, doctor. And he hung up. No questions about my prognosis. No questions about my pain level. No asking when he could see me. Just a quick thank you and goodbye. Dr. Harrison looked at me. I could see pity in his eyes. I'm sorry, Eleanor. Don't be, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I needed to hear that. Now call Daniel. Daniel's reaction was nearly identical. 6 months? Are you absolutely certain? There's no chance of a misdiagnosis? Followed by, what do we need to do? Are there arrangements we should start making? Arrangements. He was already thinking about my funeral arrangements. Before I was even dead. Before I'd even been told I was dying. Neither of my sons cried. Neither of them asked to speak to me. Neither of them said they'd come right over. They asked questions about certainty, about timelines, about logistics, like Dr. Harrison had called to inform them of a business matter, not their mother's terminal illness. That evening, both of them came to see me. Together, they'd coordinated. Probably talked on the phone after Dr. Harrison's calls. Let's both go. We'll tell her together. We'll present a united front. They arrived at 6:30, both in their work clothes, both looking serious and somber. Bethany and Jennifer stayed in the cars. I watched from my window as Marcus and Daniel walked up my path alone, their wives sitting in their expensive SUVs checking their phones. Couldn't even be bothered to come inside for this conversation. Couldn't even pretend to care. Marcus knocked on the door. I opened it slowly, already in character. I'd practiced in the mirror that afternoon, looking weak, looking scared, looking like a woman who'd just received a death sentence. Hi, Mom, Marcus said, hugging me stiffly. Dr. Harrison called us. Come in, I said quietly, leading them to the living room. They sat together on the couch. I sat in my armchair across from them, a tissue already in my hand. Mom, Daniel started, leaning forward with his elbows on his knees, his hands clasped. We know about the cancer. I played my part perfectly. My eyes filled with tears. My hands shook. He told you? He wanted us to know so we could support you, Marcus said. How are you feeling? Scared, I said honestly, because I was scared. Not of fake cancer, but of what this experiment would reveal. I don't know how much time I have. The doctor said maybe 6 months. They exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them. Then Marcus spoke. Mom, we think it's best if you move into a care facility, somewhere with round-the-clock medical staff, somewhere that can keep you comfortable and manage your pain. A care facility. They wanted to put me in a home, while I was supposedly dying. Ship me off somewhere so they wouldn't have to deal with me. We can help you sell the house, Daniel added quickly. Put the money aside for your care. That way you'll be taken care of and we won't have to worry about the house sitting empty. The house. My house. The house where I'd raised them. Where I'd nursed them through fevers and heartbreaks. Where I'd celebrated every birthday and Christmas and graduation. They wanted to sell it before I was even dead. I don't want to move, I said weakly. This is my home. Mom, be reasonable, Marcus said, a hint of impatience creeping into his voice. You can't take care of yourself. You can't maintain this house. It makes sense to sell it now while you're still able to make decisions. While I'm still able to make decisions. Translation, sell it now before you die and we have to deal with the paperwork. Let's not talk about this now, I said, wiping my eyes. I just found out today. I need time to process. They looked frustrated. I could see it in their faces. They wanted this settled. They wanted a timeline. They wanted to know when the house would be sold, when I'd be moved to a facility, when they could start dividing up my belongings. Of course, Mom, Daniel said, standing up. We'll give you some time. But we should talk about this soon. There are things that need to be arranged. Arranged. Like I was a business deal. A transaction. A problem to be efficiently solved. They hugged me again, quick, uncomfortable hugs, and left. 40 minutes. They'd stayed 40 minutes after learning their mother was dying. I watched from the window as they got into their cars. I saw Bethany lean over to kiss Marcus's cheek. I saw Jennifer pat Daniel's hand. Comforting them. Their poor husbands, dealing with a dying mother. How stressful for them. Over the next 2 months, my sons visited more frequently. Every week. Sometimes twice a week. But I could see through their performance. They weren't coming because they loved me. They were coming to manage the situation, to keep track of my decline, to make sure everything was on schedule. They'd walk through my house with calculating eyes. Bethany would touch my mother's china cabinet and say, "This is beautiful, Eleanor." It would look amazing in our dining room. Not, "It's sad that you won't be here to pass it down." Not, "We'll treasure this after you're gone." But it would look amazing in our house, already claiming it, already decorating with my belongings in her mind. Marcus would stand in the doorway of rooms, and I could see him mentally measuring, planning, estimating values. Daniel would casually ask about my accounts, my insurance policies, my investments. "Just so we know what the situation is, Mom. Just so we can help you plan." But I knew what they were really doing. They were cataloging, inventorying, preparing to divide the spoils. Then came the conversation I'll never forget. The one that justified everything I was doing. The one that showed me their true faces. It was a Saturday afternoon. Marcus and Daniel had come to visit. I told them I needed to lie down, that I was tired. They said they'd wait downstairs, help themselves to coffee. I went to my bedroom, but I didn't lie down. I stood in the hallway just out of sight and I listened. "I want the china cabinet." Bethany's voice clear and firm. She must have come in after all. "Your mother promised it to me years ago." She hadn't. I'd never promised her anything. But apparently in her mind, she'd already claimed it. "Fine, you can have that," Marcus replied. "But I want the house. It's worth at least $400,000. We can split that, but I'm doing all the work to sell it, so I should get a bigger percentage. 60-40. My house. My home. The house I'd bought with my late husband before he left. The house I'd paid off with 3 jobs and 15 years of 4-hour sleep nights. They were dividing it up like spoils of war, and I was still alive. "What about her jewelry?" Jennifer's voice sharp and calculating. "She has that diamond necklace from her mother." "That's worth at least $10,000. It was worth $8,000. But I'd told Jennifer it was a family heirloom that would go to Claire when I died. Apparently Jennifer had other plans. "Let's just wait and see what the will says first," Daniel said. "If she hasn't updated it recently, we might have to contest some things." Contest. They were already planning to fight over my will. Planning to challenge anything they didn't like. Planning to squeeze every last penny out of my death. "She never mentioned having much in savings," Marcus said. "But she must have something. She owned this house outright. No mortgage. And she's been collecting Social Security for 5 years, plus her retirement from all those jobs." He said all those jobs with disdain. Like I should be ashamed that I'd worked myself to exhaustion to give them a better life. "We should go through her papers," Bethany suggested. "Bank statements, investment accounts. Make sure we know everything." "Legally, we can't until she's gone," Daniel said. I checked. "We'd need power of attorney." "Should we ask her for it?" Jennifer asked. "No," Marcus said quickly. "She'd suspect something. Let's just wait. It won't be long. It won't be long." They were counting down the days until my death. Waiting. Impatient. Ready to divide up everything I'd worked for. Everything I'd saved. Everything I'd sacrificed to build. I stood in that hallway, listening to my sons and their wives discuss my belongings like treasure hunters dividing a map, and something inside me turned to ice. Not sadness. Not heartbreak. Something colder. Something harder. Resolve. They would get nothing. Not a single item. Not 1 penny. Because they didn't deserve it. They didn't deserve my mother's china or my diamond necklace or my house or my savings. They deserved to stand at my funeral and realize they'd gambled wrong. They'd gambled on me dying quickly and leaving everything to them. They'd gambled on me never finding out what they really thought of me. They were about to lose that gamble. I called Dr. Harrison that night. "It's time," I said. "Let's move to the next phase." The next phase was brutal, even though I knew it was fake. I had to look like I was dying. I had to be convincing, so I stopped eating much. Lost weight. Bought theatrical makeup that made me look paler, more gaunt. Drew dark circles under my eyes. Started moving slower, using a cane I didn't need, holding my side like it hurt. When my sons visited, they saw a dying woman, and they seemed relieved, like this was progressing nicely, like everything was on schedule. 3 months after the diagnosis, Dr. Harrison made the final call. It was a Tuesday morning just after 9. He called Marcus first. "Marcus, I'm very sorry, but your mother passed away this morning, about 7 a.m., peacefully, in her sleep." I wasn't there for the call, but Dr. Harrison recorded it for me. With their permission, they thought it was for medical records. I listened to it later, sitting alone in my kitchen, my hands clenched into fists. Marcus's response, Oh God. Okay. Thank you for calling, doctor. I'll start making arrangements." That was it. Not, "No, this can't be happening." Not, "I should have spent more time with her." Not, "I wish I'd told her I loved her more." Just, "I'll start making arrangements." Dr. Harrison called Daniel next. "This morning?" "But I just talked to her 2 days ago." She seemed a pause. "I mean, she was sick, but—" Another pause. Then more businesslike. "What do we need to do? Is there paperwork?" Paperwork. His mother had died, and he wanted to know about paperwork. Neither of them cried. Neither of them asked to see my body. They asked about logistics, about what happens next, about when they could start settling the estate. That night, they had a family meeting at a coffee shop. My friend Margaret, who was in on the plan, happened to be there. She texted me updates. Marcus just said the funeral will cost about $8,000. They're splitting it 50-50. Daniel just said they should list the house immediately. Market's good right now. Bethany just laughed about something. Actually laughed. At a meeting about your funeral. Then came the comment that sealed everything. Margaret texted, "Marcus just said, and I quote, 'She was a difficult woman sometimes. But she was our mother. We owe her a proper funeral. Difficult.' He called me difficult. The woman who'd worked 3 jobs to raise him. The woman who'd sacrificed everything so he could have a better life than she did. Difficult." I sat in my dark living room, reading that text, and I smiled. Not a happy smile. A vindicated smile. Because I'd been right. This experiment, this elaborate plan had revealed the truth. And the truth was ugly. But at least it was honest. I planned my own funeral with the help of Father Michael at St. Catherine's Church. He's 72, has been a priest for 45 years, and he's seen everything. When I told him what I wanted to do, he didn't judge. He didn't lecture. He just said, "Sometimes we need the truth more than we need peace. And sometimes the truth only comes when people think we can't hear them." The funeral was scheduled for Tuesday morning at 10. I arrived at 9:30, dressed in a long black coat, wearing a brown wig that covered my gray hair, large sunglasses, and a black lace veil that covered most of my face. I looked like an old widow who'd stepped out of a 1950s photograph. I sat in the very back row, in the far corner, where the light was dim and the shadows deep. No one paid attention to me. Just another mourner. An old woman in black, invisible, which was perfect. The church filled slowly. About 80 people showed up. My sons, looking appropriately solemn in expensive black suits. Their wives, dabbing at their eyes with tissues that stayed mysteriously dry. My grandchildren, looking bored, checking their phones. My sister's children came, a few cousins I hadn't seen in years, old neighbors, people from my book club. They sat in the front row, directly in front of the casket. Yes, there was a casket. Empty, but they didn't know that. Oak with brass handles lined with white satin. $3,000. Money well spent. Father Michael began the service with a prayer, his voice echoing in the church. I watched my sons. Marcus kept checking his phone, subtle but noticeable. Daniel yawned once and tried to hide it behind his hand. Then came the eulogies. The moment I'd been waiting for, the moment that would justify everything, Marcus stood up first. He walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, cleared his throat, and began. My mother, Eleanor Grace Mitchell, was... He paused, like he was searching for the right word. She was a woman of many qualities. What qualities? He didn't say. He couldn't say. Because he didn't know me anymore. Hadn't known me for years. She raised my brother and me as a single mother after our father left when we were young. That couldn't have been easy. Couldn't have been easy. Like it was a mild inconvenience. Like it hadn't nearly killed me with exhaustion and stress and fear. She was... Another pause. Traditional. Set in her ways. Sometimes difficult to deal with. The church went silent. People shifted uncomfortably. You don't call someone difficult at their funeral. You say strong-willed or determined or independent, but Marcus said difficult. Because that's what he really thought. That I was a difficult old woman who'd made his life harder. But she loved us in her own way, he continued. And now she's at peace. Then he said it. The words that made everything worth it. He looked at Daniel, some silent communication passing between them. Then he smiled. Just a small smile, but I saw it. Everyone saw it. My mother lived a simple life. She left a simple legacy. But at least now, the smile grew slightly. At least now, the complicated parts are over. The house can be sold, the estate can be settled, and we can all move forward with our lives. The church erupted in shocked whispers. People stared at him. Father Michael's face turned to stone. But Marcus didn't notice. He just nodded, satisfied with his eulogy, and walked back to his seat. Bethany reached over and squeezed his hand. I saw her lean in and whisper, loud enough for people nearby to hear, "Good job, honey." That was perfect, perfect. She thought it was perfect that her husband had essentially said he was glad his mother was dead so he could get her money. Daniel went next. He was smoother, more practiced.
He's a lawyer, after all.
He knows how to perform. He told a story about me teaching him to ride a bike, a memory I'd cherished. But the way he told it, I sounded silly, overprotective, smothering. People laughed. At my funeral, they laughed at me. Mom was always worried, he said, smiling at the memory. Worried we'd get hurt, worried we'd fail, worried about everything. But we turned out okay, despite all that worry. Despite. Like I'd been an obstacle to overcome, not a mother trying to protect her children. She worked hard, he continued. And she saved money. A lot of money, always thinking about our future. He emphasized a lot of money. I saw Bethany and Jennifer exchange meaningful glances. He was telling them, don't worry, there's plenty to go around. She wanted us to be successful, and we are. I think she'd be proud of what we've achieved. Would I? Would I be proud that they'd become successful men who valued money more than family? Who saw their mother as a bank account with legs? Then he crossed a line I hadn't expected. I know Mom had some difficult years at the end. The loneliness, the health problems, but at least she's not suffering anymore. And at least we don't have to watch her decline any further. Sometimes... He paused for effect. Sometimes death is a mercy, a mercy. For whom? For me? Or for them? He sat down. Jennifer kissed his cheek and said, loud enough for those nearby to hear, "That was beautiful, honey. Really beautiful. It wasn't beautiful." It was an insult wrapped in fake sympathy. Then came my grandchildren. Claire stood up, all 17 years old and bored. She walked to the podium in her designer clothes, ironically wearing a black dress I'd bought her last year, and spoke for exactly 18 seconds. My grandmother was old. Like really old. We didn't really know her that well because we didn't visit much. But I guess she was nice. She gave good presents. That was it. 18 seconds. I timed it. 18 seconds to sum up my entire existence to her. Old and gave good presents. Sophie didn't even stand up. She just waved from her seat and said, "Yeah," what Claire said. Ditto. Jake and Michael, my grandsons, didn't speak at all. They played on their phones the entire service. Jennifer hissed at them once to put the devices away, but they just held them lower. This was my legacy. This was what I got for 40 years of sacrifice. Children who called me difficult at my funeral. Grandchildren who barely knew I existed. Then Margaret stood up. She's 70, has known me for 30 years, and she was done being polite. "Eleanor Grace Mitchell," she began, her voice shaking with emotion and rage. was one of the kindest, most selfless women I have ever known. She looked around the church, making eye contact with as many people as possible. She gave everything to her family. Everything. Her time, her money, her dreams, her health. She worked 3 jobs so her sons could have better lives. She sacrificed her own happiness so they could be happy. She turned to look directly at Marcus and Daniel, and in return she was neglected, forgotten, treated like an inconvenience. I watched it happen over the last 2 years. I watched her try so hard to maintain relationships with sons who couldn't be bothered to call. I watched her buy expensive gifts for grandchildren who barely thanked her. I watched her wait by the phone for calls that never came. Marcus looked angry. Daniel looked uncomfortable. Bethany whispered something to Marcus, probably telling him to do something, to stop this. Eleanor deserved better, Margaret finished, tears streaming down her face. She deserved sons who loved her, who appreciated her, who showed up. Not just when it was convenient, but always. She deserved to be valued, not just for what she could provide, but for who she was. And she deserved to know that she mattered. She sat down. The church was completely silent. Awkward, heavy, uncomfortable silence. Father Michael cleared his throat. "Let us pray," he said, and began the final prayers. People bowed their heads, including my sons. They looked relieved that the service was almost over. Just the burial left, and then they could start the process of settling the estate. But they didn't know. They had no idea what was about to happen. They didn't know I was sitting 20 feet away, very much alive, hearing every word. They didn't know that Father Michael was about to reveal the truth. After the final prayer, Father Michael paused. Then he said something that made everyone look up. "Before we close this service, I have an unusual announcement to make." People frowned, confused. "What kind of announcement?" "It seems," Father Michael said slowly, choosing his words carefully, "that there has been a mistake." The church filled with confused whispers. "A mistake? What kind of mistake?" "The deceased," Father Michael continued, his voice growing stronger, "is not actually deceased." The whispers grew louder. People looked at each other, bewildered. Marcus stood up. "Father, what are you talking about? What kind of joke is this?" "No joke, Marcus," Father Michael said. "Eleanor Grace Mitchell is alive." That's when I stood up. Slowly, deliberately, I removed my sunglasses. Then my veil. Then my wig. My gray hair, pinned up in a neat bun, was visible to everyone. The church went completely, utterly silent. You could have heard a pin drop. I started walking down the aisle, slowly, letting everyone see my face. Letting them see that I was alive, healthy, very much not dead. "Hello, Marcus," I said, my voice clear and strong. "Hello, Daniel," the look on their faces. I will remember it until my actual dying day. Pure shock, disbelief, horror, mouths hanging open, eyes wide, frozen in place. "Surprise," I said, now standing at the front of the church, facing everyone. "I'm not dead," Bethany gasped. Actually gasped out loud. Jennifer's tissue fell from her hand. Even the grandchildren looked up from their phones, finally paying attention. "Mom?" Marcus whispered, his face pale. But Dr. Harrison said, "The cancer." "Dr. Harrison is an excellent actor," I replied, "and a better friend than you've been a son." I turned to face the entire congregation. Most people were smiling now. Some had hands over their mouths, trying not to laugh. Margaret was crying, but happy tears. Father Michael looked satisfied. "I faked my own death," I announced. "I needed to know the truth. I needed to hear what you really thought of me, without the filters, without the forced smiles, without the performance. And now I know." I looked directly at my sons. "Now I know exactly what I mean to you. I'm an inconvenience, a problem to be managed, a difficult old woman, a house to be sold and money to be divided." Daniel found his voice. "Mom, we can explain." "Explain what?" I cut him off. "Explain how you called me difficult at my funeral? Explain how you said my death was a mercy so you wouldn't have to watch me decline? Explain how you two and your wives have been planning for months how to split up my belongings?" Bethany spoke up, her voice shrill. Eleanor, you're taking this out of context. Am I? I pulled a small digital recorder from my coat pocket. I have everything recorded. Every conversation. Every comment. Every greedy little plan. I pressed play. Marcus's voice filled the church. At least now the complicated parts are over. The house can be sold, the estate can be settled, and we can all move forward. People in the church gasped. Some shook their heads in disgust. I stopped the recording. I have hours of this, I said. Hours of you two and your wives discussing my belongings, my money, my property, talking about me like I was already gone. Like I meant nothing. Like the only value I had was what I could leave you when I died. Jennifer stood up, her face red with anger. How dare you? How dare you put us through this? Do you know how manipulative this is? How cruel? I laughed. Actually laughed. It felt good. Manipulative. You think this is manipulative? You manipulated your way out of every visit. You manipulated your children into thinking I was a burden. You manipulated your husbands into seeing me as nothing more than an inconvenience and an eventual inheritance. I shook my head. No, this wasn't manipulation. This was revelation. This was truth. This was showing everyone here exactly who you really are. Father Michael stepped forward. Eleanor asked me to be part of this because she needed to know the truth. And what I witnessed today was shameful. He looked at Marcus and Daniel with disappointment. This woman gave you life. She raised you alone. She sacrificed everything for you. And your eulogies? Your eulogies treated her like a problem that had finally been solved. Marcus tried again. Mom, we love you. No, I said firmly with finality. You love my house. You love my money. You love what I can give you. But you don't love me. If you loved me, you would have visited. If you loved me, you would have called. If you loved me, you wouldn't have talked about selling my house before I was cold in the ground. Except I'm not in the ground. I'm right here, watching you squirm. I walked to the casket and put my hand on it. $3,000 for an empty box. Best investment I ever made. Because now I know the truth. And so does everyone else here. Then I pulled an envelope from my coat. This is my new will. Signed, notarized, completely legal. Mr. Chen, my lawyer, has the original. Marcus lunged forward. You can't. I can, I interrupted. And I did. I'm leaving everything, the house, the savings, all of it, to charity. St. Catherine's homeless shelter will get the house. Cancer research will get my savings. The animal shelter will get the rest. You can't do that, Marcus yelled, his composure completely shattered. We're your sons. We deserve. I cut him off. You deserve nothing. You've shown me exactly what our relationship means to you. Nothing. So I'm giving my assets to people who will actually appreciate them. People who will actually do good with them. People who won't stand at my funeral and complain about how difficult I was. Bethany was screaming now. This is insane. You're not thinking clearly. We'll contest this. We'll prove you're mentally unstable. I'm thinking more clearly than I have in years, I said calmly. And good luck with that legal challenge. I have video evidence of planning this for months. I have medical records proving I'm in perfect health. I have testimony from a doctor, a priest, and about 80 witnesses who just watched me walk out of my own funeral perfectly sane and healthy. I started walking back up the aisle toward the exit. People moved aside to let me pass. Many were smiling. Some reached out to touch my arm supportively. Margaret hugged me tight as I passed. You're magnificent, she whispered. Daniel called after me. Mom, wait, please. We can fix this. We can talk about this. We can work it out. I stopped and turned around one last time. Fix what, Daniel? Fix the fact that you wished I was actually dead so you could move on with your life and spend my money? No, some things can't be fixed. Some things are too broken. This is one of them. Where are you going? Marcus asked, and for the first time I heard something that might have been genuine emotion in his voice. Panic. Fear. Because suddenly I wasn't a dying woman he could manage. I was an alive woman he'd lost. I'm going home, I said. My home. The home that will never ever be yours. And tomorrow Margaret and I are flying to Ireland. First class. I've always wanted to see Ireland. And then Scotland. And then Greece. I'm going to spend the rest of my life traveling, seeing the world, spending my money on me. For once in my life, I'm living for myself. I pushed open the church doors and walked out into the sunlight. It was a beautiful day. Birds were singing. The sky was impossibly blue, and I felt lighter than I had in years. Free, truly free. Behind me, I could hear shouting. My sons arguing with their wives. People talking loudly. Father Michael trying to restore some semblance of order. But I didn't look back. I just kept walking. That was 3 months ago. 3 of the best months of my life. I've been to Ireland, saw the cliffs of Moher, kissed the Blarney Stone, stayed in a castle. I've been to Scotland, toured Edinburgh, visited Isle of Skye, drank whiskey in a pub that was older than America. I'm planning Greece for next month, Santorini, Mykonos, Athens. I've stayed in 5-star hotels. I've eaten at Michelin-starred restaurants. I've bought myself beautiful clothes and jewelry. I'm living. Really living. Marcus and Daniel have called me 47 times. I counted. I haven't answered once. They've sent emails, texts, letters, all of them saying variations of the same thing. We're sorry. We didn't mean it. Please give us another chance. Please talk to us, but I meant what I said. Some things can't be fixed. Some things aren't meant to be fixed. 2 weeks ago, they showed up at my house. I saw them from my window, standing on my porch, ringing my doorbell. I watched them stand there for 20 minutes before they finally gave up and left. The next day, I received a legal letter from their lawyer. They're contesting my will, claiming I'm not of sound mind, claiming I was emotionally disturbed when I made these decisions, claiming I was manipulated by Dr. Harrison or Father Michael or Margaret. My lawyer, Mr. Chen, laughed when he read it. Eleanor, they don't have a case. You have video evidence of planning this rationally for months. You have medical records showing you're in perfect health. You have testimony from a doctor and a priest. You have 80 witnesses who watched you walk out of that church perfectly sane. And you have recordings of them discussing how to divide your belongings before you were dead. If anything, those recordings show they were the ones being manipulative. He's right. They don't have a case. But even if they did, even if they somehow won, I'd spend every penny fighting them in court before I'd let them have a single dollar. My grandchildren have tried reaching out too. Claire sent me a long letter. 6 pages, handwritten. She apologized. She said she didn't understand, that her parents had always complained about me, so she thought it was okay to treat me that way. She said she wants a relationship with me. She wants to know me. She wants another chance, I wrote back. I told her I appreciate the apology. I told her that trust isn't rebuilt overnight. I told her that if she truly wants to know me, she needs to show it through consistent actions over time, not just words in a letter. I told her my door is open, but she has to walk through it on her own terms, not because her parents told her to smooth things over. We'll see what happens. Part of me wants to forgive her. She's young. She's 17. She was influenced by her parents. But another part of me knows that 17 is old enough to know better. Old enough to know that your grandmother is a person who deserves respect and love. Sophie sent a text. Just 1 sentence. I'm sorry, Gran, can we talk? I haven't responded yet. I don't know if I will. Jake and Michael haven't reached out at all. They're too young to understand, I suppose. Or maybe they just don't care. Maybe they never will. As for Marcus and Daniel, I don't know if I'll ever speak to them again. Maybe someday, years from now, if they truly change. If they truly understand what they did. If they truly become different people. But I'm not holding my breath. You know what the strangest part is? I'm not even angry anymore. I was at first, furious, betrayed, hurt beyond words. But now I just feel free. Free from the weight of trying to earn love from people who saw me as a burden. Free from waiting for phone calls that never came. Free from buying expensive gifts to try to prove I mattered. Free from being difficult for simply existing and wanting to be part of my children's lives. My friend Margaret says I'm brave. Father Michael says I'm wise. Mr. Chen says I'm his favorite client ever. But I don't know if I'm any of those things. I think I'm just a woman who got tired of being treated like she didn't matter and decided to matter to herself. If you're listening to this, and you're elderly, and you're being neglected by your family, know this. You are not obligated to give your life away to people who don't value it. You deserve happiness. You deserve respect. And it's never too late to stand up for yourself. It's never too late to say enough. If you're listening to this and you have elderly parents, please, I'm begging you, call them. Visit them, not because you want something from them, but because they gave you everything. They sacrificed for you. They loved you when you couldn't love yourself. Don't wait until they're gone to wish you'd spent more time with them. Don't wait until you're standing at their real funeral, filled with genuine regret, wishing you could go back and change things. And if you're someone who's been treating your parents like I was treated, ask yourself, is this who you want to be? Is this the legacy you want to leave your own children? Because your children are watching. They're learning from you. They're learning that elderly people are disposable. That family doesn't matter. That love has a price tag. And someday, when you're old and vulnerable and need them, they'll treat you exactly the way you treated your parents. Karma is real, and it's very, very patient. As for my sons, I hope they learn something from this. I hope they look at their own children and realize that the way they treated their mother is the way their children will treat them someday. I hope they understand that you can't fake love. You can't perform it. You have to live it, every day, through action and attention and genuine care, but I'm not waiting around to see if they learn that lesson. I'm living my life. I'm 65 years old. I'm healthy. I'm happy. And I'm finally doing things for me. I faked my funeral to find the truth, and the truth set me free. Now let me ask you, because I really want to know, was I wrong? Did I go too far? Or did I do exactly what needed to be done? Go to the comments right now and tell me. First, would you have done the same thing if you were in my shoes? Have you ever felt invisible to the people who are supposed to love you most? Second, do you think my sons were always like this, or did their wives turn them against me? Were Marcus and Daniel victims too, in a way? Third, should I forgive them if they truly change? How would I even know if the change was real or just another performance to get back in my will? I need to hear from you. Every comment helps me know I'm not alone in this. Every comment helps me believe I did the right thing. And who knows, maybe your comment will help someone else who's going through the same thing. Maybe your words will give someone else the courage to stand up for themselves. If you liked this story, you can support me by sending a super thanks. It helps me keep bringing more stories like this. On the screen right now, you can see 2 more life stories I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story. My name is Eleanor Grace Mitchell. I'm 65 years old. I came back from the dead to reclaim my life. And let me tell you, life is pretty damn good on this side of the grave. See you in the next story. And remember, you matter. No matter what anyone tells you, you matter.